Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today, I am joined by an amazing cosplayer that I stumbled across on Instagram. Her name is Jay. You may know her as Snarky Jay Cosplay on the Instagram app, but I have the pleasure of getting to sit down and talk with her today about her fandoms. Welcome to the podcast, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is an absolute pleasure. I cannot remember how I stumbled across your Instagram or who's had shared it. I assume is through somebody sharing pictures, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And it has been a delight to see the costumes that you routinely do and put out. It's phenomenal.
I really appreciate it. It's definitely kind of a chore sometimes, but I really enjoy putting out content and portraying all these different characters.
It's something where, and I've talked with a number of different cosplayers, I cannot imagine, even for me, putting on like a pair of pants and a shirt to kind of resemble a character. I'm like, man, that's a lot of work. And the level of what you do is just it's incredible how much I guess just that drive to do it and just get yourself out there and doing the pictures and the costumes, and I don't know. I'm constantly amazed by people who cosplay.
It's funny because I think it's kind of like a positive feedback loop type thing in that, for instance, my Power Girl costume, if I put it on by myself, takes 20 minutes just to get the leggings and the bodysuit on. And so by the time it's on, I'm like, all right, now I'm dedicated to the character. Now the pictures have to get taken. Now I have to be out there. So it's kind of like the struggle invites the energy to continue and really get out there. Just because it's like, I spent 20 minutes, I'm going to get my picture taken.
Oh my goodness. It is. I see some of the costumes. I'm like, dang, I don't know how people survive in them. And then let alone the ones that do the AM, this is my costume. And then PM, this is my costume.
Oh, no.
I'd be like, I'm in it to win it for like the day.
Yeah, no, I can't bring myself to do that. I'm not going to wash my face and now put another thing on. If I get back to the hotel room and I take the shoes off, I'm done for the day. Don't expect me to do anything else.
Now, I know that we're going to talk about cosplay more, but you have a number of different fandoms that you're into, and one of the first ones that you told me about is that you are into Marvel.
Yes, definitely. That's probably my main one.
Now, are you more like Marvel movies, Marvel TV shows, comics, everything? Like, what do you have?
I used to be a little bit of everything. I started off based on the movies when I was way younger, and I think literally in like 2008 when Iron Man came out, I actually fell asleep through it, and I never had any interest in it. And then in 2012, I think it was actually, 11 when Captain America came out, I was like, okay, I can get behind this guy. Like, definitely patriotic, tragic best friend. I can do it for sure. So I definitely started with the movies. And then when they came out with Daredevil on Netflix, that was all I thought about and talked about for about like a year and a half, especially when they brought the Punisher into it. But the later seasons of like all the other shows, and I wasn't really into Iron Fist or anything like that. So I think I mainly center on the movies, and there were a couple of comic runs that I liked, but I mean I can't discuss comics. They're way too expensive, and I just it's hard to keep track because everything is a different storyline. So I kind of just prefer the movies with a little bit of background knowledge because the movies are clear cut, and you can base some stuff off the comics, but it's not. Do you remember this run from 1987 and Thanos and his family? Like, I don't care. Just give me the movie.
I have to agree with you on the the Netflix Marvel stuff. I watched like the first season of everything that came out, and then watched the Defenders, and then it just kind of started dropping off. Like I watched Daredevil season 2, and I watched like Jessica Jones season 2, but I never watched Iron Fist season 2. I never watched Luke
Yeah.
Cage season 2. Like I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was just like burned out on them or just I don't know. But yeah, movies. It's incredible to think back to when they started. Yeah, I mean, you fell asleep in Iron Man, and that's okay. But it's
I was
incredible.
8, so
Well, yeah. Oh, I totally. I mean, my kids. I definitely have one of my kids is a struggle. He hates going to the movie theater because the chairs are so comfortable, and he
it's so
just likes to sleep.
dark.
Do you have a favorite Marvel movie or Marvel movie character?
Absolutely. My favorite Marvel movie is definitely Captain America: The Winter Soldier for a number of reasons, but yeah, he's also my favorite character in the comics and in the movies. In the movies he's like irrelevant, but in the comics and stuff like that, definitely the Winter Soldier, Bucky, that's my number one.
That is one of my favorites too. It's like a rotating, but like Winter Soldier's up there because I love that you have Captain America, but you have this like kind of like team with him of Black Widow and Falcon, and they've got like this whole vibe going on, and just like the set pieces that they have are just really fun.
As a movie, it's actually really good. I mean, my dad has spent, the past 10 years taking me to the movies when I haven't had somebody to go with. So, I'll buy the premiere tickets, and he's been the kind. I mean, my mom too, but my mom actually likes them. So my dad will literally stand in the lines to get the best seats, from 7 o'clock and all that. So he's done the premieres with me. And he's never liked Marvel at all. He thinks it should have stayed in the 80s. He's like, I liked Spider-Man when I was a kid. He's irrelevant to me now. I don't understand why people cling to this. Like, we all have our things that Marvel and superheroes and that kind of thing isn't his. But Captain America: The Winter Soldier was actually the one movie that I actually saw him be entertained during. Like, because it feels like an action movie sometimes. Like, yeah, you've got your superhero elements to it. And obviously, if you haven't seen the first one, the reveal of Bucky isn't as big a deal. But, from an action movie perspective, it actually is a really, really good movie, even if you're not big on the superhero thing. So I think that that in itself makes it one of the highest ranking Marvel movies in general.
Absolutely. It's just there's so much like not only like I think a lot of it is for me with the movie like the relationship between the characters, the action that's going on, and then there's just a lot of like layering of stuff that's going on in the movie that is like alluded to, and you're like, "Ooh, they mentioned something or they showed something,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll happen in another movie."
Yeah, like the whole, I think when Zola mentions, accidents will happen, and they show the newspaper that, tells you that Howard and Maria Stark died in a car crash. I was like, oh my God, was Hydra behind that? And then when they show you in Civil War that it was really the Winter Soldier the whole time, it's like all these little dots that you connect over the years watching the movies that makes it all worth it.
It absolutely is. Now, I know that for me personally with the Marvel movies, there's some that I kind of tend to gloss over or, skip if I'm rewatching some of them. Are there
Mhm.
any that you're like, I could leave them. I don't really need them in my life.
I feel so guilty about it, but yes, I've still haven't seen this Ant-Man and the Wasp. I haven't. It's on Netflix, and I just like I can't. I don't know why. That one. I haven't seen Spider-Man: Far From Home, which I feel really bad about it because I love Spider-Man. I don't know why I haven't gotten around to that one. Captain Marvel, I don't even want to think about. I haven't seen that either, but I tend to skip over like the second Thor movie. What is it? The Dark World. I think it's
Yeah.
my favorite Thor look, but that is such a terrible movie that I just refuse. I don't even like the first one. The first one I watch it because it's like big blonde guy, large hammer, lightning. It's like that's all that gets me to watch that movie. Other than that, I'm like, pass. All the other ones I'm fine with. Guardians of the Galaxy I liked, yeah, but I won't deal with it.
I totally understand. Like especially Thor the Dark World, like Thor 2 the Dark World. That's the one that it's just, man, I cannot get into it. I don't really like the character. Like, I don't like how they did the characters in it,
No.
or or pushing characters to the side, and but I find it amusing that that's the movie that they went back to for the end game, where they're doing the time travel. It's like, oh, that you've ended up in Thor 2 the Dark World.
It was awful. It was awful that, and they made, I mean, they literally just, they took you back there just to have the sole purpose of Thor being called fat one more time by his mom. It's like, you know what? If I wanted this, I would go home to my abuela and let her criticize me for a little bit, you know? Like, this is not what I'm here for.
Oh my goodness. I have to say, of the character looks for people, I loved Thor being who he was. Like, man, if all that stuff happened and I'm the one here like trying to kill Thanos, and I struck for the shoulder and not the head, yeah, I'd be sitting video gaming and just not trying to care about the world at all.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't have a problem with the fact that they did that at all. I thought it was a really kind of brave move because I know that, I mean, I from like, yeah, from like a reptile brain perspective, you know, you do go to these movies as a female and you're like, oh my god, like a bunch of really handsome men for like 2.5 hours, this is like everything to me. You know, you get attached to the stories and all that, and that's what I'm there for now, but you know, it's still kind of like a bonus. And so you show up and, you know, the god of thunder is now like, you know, your average you know, neckbeard, I guess, type look, and he's sad and just miserable, and it really shocks the system. I was really surprised by it, and I felt so bad because I legitimately love Thor so much as a character that I was like, all right, how do I get in this movie to give this guy a hug and like help him out, because this is just so depressing. So I didn't have a problem with it at all, and I thought the internet was so mean, just like roasting him the whole time. Like, he's been through a traumatic experience. I think that the movie handled it so poorly. Like, instead of them really going like, "Oh my god, this guy is like a legend and he's really sad about this. Like, look what it's done to him. This is horrible." They were just like, "Let's have the raccoon say that he looks like melted ice cream," you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I loved that, and I love that they kept his look through the movie. Like, even at the
Yeah, he
end.
didn't just magically regenerate into like hot guy status by the end, which is what I thought was going to happen.
Exactly, and I kind of hope, if when they do, like, if they like go to like the Asgardians of the Galaxy type thing, I
Mm.
hope they kind of keep that look, or at least something where you can tell that he's still working on himself, because I really
Right.
feel like it's not a character style that you generally see in superhero movies.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it honestly, from an accuracy perspective, I don't think that it's completely unbelievable. Like, I thought, I don't know, I think it's a smart move to keep if they kept him at least like working on himself or whatever. So maybe the hair like less dirty. Like, just bring down the Lebowski aesthetic. Give him some real clothes, you know. The braided beard was cool, the hair was cool, just maybe like a little less dandruff. Get the guy some head and shoulders, but leave him a big dude. That's fine. Like, he can still handle the hammer and be an Asgardian and be a legend. We don't need him to be cut up. They can give Hemsworth a break. You know, he can go relax and enjoy his time with his kids. We're still gonna love Thor. That's fine. Just stop insulting him.
There you go. Now, as a Captain America lover, as a fan of Cap,
Yeah.
how were you in Endgame when all of a sudden, like, he's got the shield plus the hammer?
Oh my god. You know, I that happened, and I think like the theater screamed because I was there at like the very first showing. I went to the Thursday 7 o'clock showing at my local theater, and that was like the first one that they had. Um, I mean, everybody screamed, and I was just like in shock because I get very, very into these things. So I'll be sitting there on the edge of my seat, like heart in my throat, freaking out, but just completely silent, like blank faced. I'm just not hearing anything other than the movie. And next thing I know, the hammer's flying. He's got it in his hand. And I mean, honestly, I went into the movie expecting him to die. That's who I thought was a goner. Like, I was like, Cap is done. And I was ready for it because of what I thought would follow it that didn't. But I was ready for it. I went in accepting this. And next thing I know, he's wielding the hammer. I was like, what? It was honestly so cool. Like the shattered shield and the hammer, and he's battle damaged and bleeding, but he's still out there. I thought that was honestly one of the most rewarding scenes because you really see like he is worthy. All of this is paying off, which if you asked him to carry the hammer at the end of the movie, I doubt he would have been able to on account of, time traveling and abandoning his ideals. But
Hmm.
that's besides the point. It was a cool moment though.
Now we've got a lot of like Marvel properties coming up, starting this year, which we took like a good 8 months off. We've got two movies this year. We've got some stuff happening on Disney Plus. What are you looking forward to most of what they've announced so far?
Um, I guess in terms of Marvel specifically, I'm definitely looking forward to the What If series. I saw some of the pictures from that of the What If Peggy Carter was Captain America. Those kinds of things look cool. I thought the WandaVision show looked really. No, I'm sorry, not WandaVision. Wow, I completely zoned out there. The no, I'm sorry. The Doctor Strange multiverse of madness, whatever it is. Like I thought that looks pretty neat. I'm definitely interested in that. My number one though is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which should surprise nobody. But I'm definitely, yeah, I like their dynamic. I think it's going to be interesting to see the Winter Soldier do more than just brood and have Captain America speak for him. I think some character development is definitely necessary, and I hope it's got a little bit of that buddy cop comedy element to it between him and Falcon.
Well, absolutely. That's one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most because even when Winter Soldier came out, I was like, man, I'd love to have Sam and Natasha have a movie because their buddy relationship was really funny to kind of watch
Yeah.
and see. And then absolutely like Bucky and Sam when they're in that small car in Eastern Europe and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you can just see it and I want more of it.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I think Sebastian Stan is a very capable actor, and I like seeing him play, I guess, kind of the straight man to Anthony Mackie. Because in a way, I mean, they're both equally irritated with each other, but the guy that's a little more out there and hasn't been brainwashed and tortured for 70 plus years is Sam. So that's definitely the guy bringing the humor to it, and you have this exasperated 100-year-old ex-assassin now trying to become, acclimated, I guess, to modern society and deal with this guy. I think it's going to be so awesome to watch.
It is. It is. I'm looking forward to it. I know that, Marvel has bought so many other things now where you're just kind of waiting to see how they're going to implement like the X-Men future stuff or
Yeah.
the Fantastic Four. But they keep talking about how they have like their 5 years planned out, and I'm really just waiting to see what they do because there's so many good characters that get to hopefully shine and take over for the characters that we've lost or they retired.
Yeah, it's kind of a bittersweet thing because I'm definitely interested in seeing, how they write, these new guys and the guys who've been there all along but have been, I guess either, comedic fodder or, just side characters. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do for these guys that have been supporting characters forever but haven't ever really had the spotlight. But yeah, it's definitely kind of a shock to the system because we've seen this team of heroes since 2012 when they teamed up in the Avengers for the first time, and now it's like everybody's gone. Natasha fell off a freaking cliff, and Captain America's old and useless, and like Iron Man is dead, and it's like what the heck? Like you guys have been around for almost 10 years. What do you mean you're not in the next one? It's like I'm gonna find Chris Evans and suggest he come back, figure something out.
Yep, we're just gonna have to wait and see
Yeah.
and see what they go with on the whole of the Marvel front there.
I have faith. It's I have faith because it's all I can have.
Now, on top of Marvel, speaking of like properties owned by the mouse, you are also into Star Wars.
Yes, very much. I actually really remember like never really caring about Star Wars when I was younger. And when they had announced that they were gonna do episode 7, I told my dad, I'm like, there's like this cool guy with like a red lightsaber. Like, what is that all about? Because I mean, I I really am always into the bad guys or the morally gray characters. I've never really aligned myself with like a Superman or like just these really heroic types. Like I want the tortured ones. I want the guys on the margins of society. I want like evil but not really. Um I don't own a single piece of like rebel Star Wars merchandise. All my stuff is either Mandalorian related or like Sith, Kylo Ren. Like that's absolutely up my alley. So I asked my dad, I'm like, what's up with this guy? He's like, dude, if you want to watch Star Wars, we'll watch Star Wars. So he bought the collection because that was the only way you could watch that. You could watch them back in like, I don't know, 2013, 2014. So he
Mhm.
buys the whole collection, and in a day we sat there and watched 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, and 3. And I was hooked. I was like, I was sitting there watching the movies and I was like, look, we're not gonna get obsessed with this because I know that I have a habit to find these things and find like one character and just have like this micro obsession and like just find a way to turn the conversation to that character or thing. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this isn't even that cool. And then Boba Fett showed up and I'm like, that's it. I love Star Wars. Let's talk about it. Um, so definitely, yeah, Star Wars is a thing that I've been into it less time than Marvel, but I definitely enjoy most of it. I think mainly the off-screen, not canon stuff, I guess, because I haven't liked this last trilogy, but I did pay for tickets to every movie of it, so I guess they still win.
What was your favorite movie when you sat down and watched them all?
Empire Strikes Back. I thought
Yes.
that it was just so cool. The whole like I mean obviously anybody born after like 1980 already knew that Luke is the son of Darth Vader. So it's not like that was a surprise to me anymore, which I think would have been so cool to have seen the movie in the theater and be legitimately surprised by it because they don't really
Mhm.
suggest it for the most part. And so I already knew it, but I wasn't ready for how cool and dramatic that reveal was going to be. Like it's such a good movie and the whole freezing Han Solo thing, like, oh, that's just such a good movie. It's brilliant. That is the best out of the whole 87,000 Star Wars movies that there is now. Yeah, I mean, you have like 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then like 7, 8, 9, Solo, Rogue One. Like, yeah, there's a lot, but Empire Strikes Back definitely takes the cake for me.
Absolutely. It is absolutely my favorite. When I was a kid growing up, I hated Star Wars.
Wow.
I used to play with the toys all the time because I was an '80s kid. So I had all the like the toys. My friends had toys. We'd always play with them. But I was like, man, I really hate space stuff. Like, why am I watching space stuff? And then like I got into middle school and high school and somehow started watching them and got into them. And then like when I was in high school, they did the re-releases of the movies into the theaters, and then the prequels started coming out. And it's like, okay, like more Star Wars. That's always good. I think it just like this past since the Force Awakens, it's like, man, I love Star Wars, but I don't think I need a Star Wars every year. Like let's space it out with like the movies and the side stories and just let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, but I think it's definitely this case of all right. So we have these 30 and 40-year-olds that, and even older. I mean, people that were already kind of older in '76 when Episode 4 came out. I think they were like, look, these people are now older. They have kids, and their kids no longer know who these characters are. They don't know the universe. They don't know the glory that was George Lucas's mind. So what we need to do is we need to hammer this idea to death and just create as much content as possible and hope some of it sticks. Which, I mean, of course it sticks because, you know, it was made by the mouse and it makes millions and billions, and characters have different designs every time, and you have characters made specifically for merchandising because they're following the exact formula made by
Hmm.
4, 5, and 6. They're just doing a way worse job at it and destroying everything I loved before. Not ashamed to say it. But yeah, it's definitely like this revival in order to get people, I guess, interested in the subject again.
Now you mentioned that you have a love, and you blatantly said the Mandalorian, which I think I like. I'm when they announced the Mandalorian, I was like, oh man, because like I didn't care for Boba Fett, and I was like, you know what what do I need this show for? And then I got Disney Plus the day after it launched, and hell if I didn't sit down and watch The Mandalorian and was like, that is absolutely like the Star Wars that I need in my
Amazing.
life.
Yes. It's funny because like I said, I got into Star Wars really late. I mean, I think I was born after most of the prequels had already come out. So, and I didn't really care about it till my dad showed it to me. And I remember that I had seen Boba Fett like everywhere, and I always appreciated the character design, you know, like the T-shaped visor and like the kind of gritty space cowboy aesthetic he has going on. And I thought he was such a badass, pardon my French. And I was so ready when I started watching the movies. I was like, man, Boba Fett is gonna be the guy, because I had no idea how irrelevant he was. I saw Boba Fett everywhere, and I was like, this is the dude. And next thing I know, he's like CGI'd into episode 4 because he wasn't in it before. And next thing, I mean, in Empire Strikes Back, he's got like 3 lines and they're cool. And then next thing I know, he falls into the Sarlacc pit and that's it. I was like, why is this guy on every t-shirt? This is ridiculous. I was expecting so much. And it's funny because I was like offended by how poorly he had been treated by George Lucas. I was like, this is the man. Why would you do this? And then the prequels made him look like an idiot because it's like, oh, remember how like we kind of suggested that being a Mandalorian was a cool thing. Well, he's really just a clone, and he's baby, so forget him. Like what? But I ended up looking into the extended universe of it, and I read like all the Boba Fett comics I could get my hands on. Any character that ever talked about Boba Fett, I read what they had to say. And I was like, all right, this is the one. Like, I legitimately love him so much. And so when they said that they were going to make The Mandalorian, I was like, oh my God, Boba Fett, finally. Because before they had been trying to do another anthology film like what they did with Solo, and it was going to
Hmm.
be about Boba Fett. And it basically got lost in development because they said that they were having issues writing a script for Boba Fett because it was hard to make a character who was so morally ambiguous and not really like, I mean, you know, he put Captain Solo in the cargo hold. Like, he was legitimately not a good guy. This was not somebody you wanted to tangle with, you know? And so they were supposedly having troubles writing a script for him, and it died. And I was like, all right. And so when they said that they were doing the show, I'm like, oh my God, finally. And next thing I know, it's not Boba Fett. It's this random dude in a silver helmet. And I was like, I don't even know how to feel about this. And mainly, like, I didn't watch it when it first came out, like the first week, because I didn't want to pay for Disney Plus. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get the free trial. I'm going to binge the whole thing. I didn't
Hmm.
realize that they were releasing one episode at a time. So I wasted my free trial and watched the 2 episodes that were on there. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm paying for it because I can't not watch the rest of this show. It's brilliant. I'm obsessed with it.
It is so good. It is something where after the first episode, I was like, "Yep, I'm here for it. Let me have more of it." And I'm excited that the next season is going to be at the end of this year. Like, Thank
Yes.
you. Like, give it to me. Give
Yes.
me everything.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel terrible that my Fridays are now wasted because I would wake up at literally like 6 a.m. just to sit there and watch it so that in the morning, and I already had like people in my DMs at 6 in the morning asking me if I had seen it. I'm like, didn't you sleep? This came out at like 3:30 because it's on California time. What are you doing? Um, but I would insist on watching it super early so nobody could spoil it for me. And now I'm like, can I just get the rest? Like, if Pedro Pascal just wants to put the helmet on and mumble like on a Skype quality camera for like 2 hours and like a badly CGI'd in Baby Yoda like walking around behind him, that would be fine. I would watch him cook food. If he wants to start like a cooking channel or like he could do origami for all I care. I want more Mandalorian.
Oh, that is. I have to tell you, like, my mouth is hurting from the laughing and the smiling that I've been doing over here because this is the best take on the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Mandalorians and as a culture, and I thought that John Favreau's take was so interesting because nobody ever said you couldn't take the helmet off. And next thing I know, he's like, "No, no, no, this is the way." And I'm like, "Wow, this sounds like a cult, but I am all for it." I'm all for it. Yeah, it sounds like it feels like indoctrination into a cult. But if they give me a cool helmet and I get a baby Yoda, I'm all for it. I'll never take it off. That's fine. I'll just sweat in the bucket. I'll figure out how to sneeze comfortably. I'll do what I have to do. But from a character perspective, I think they just did such a cool job because the only Mandalorian like we'd ever seen on screen in that way. I mean, Boba's in the Clone Wars, and they have like the Death Watch storylines and stuff. But
Hmm.
we'd never seen on the big screen or in live action like any other Mandalorian. And so, you had Boba Fett, man of few words, fell into the pit type thing. Nobody knew anything about him. And next thing you know, they give you this bounty hunter who just gives up his awesome day job to be a dad. And it's like, wow, if you describe that plot to me, I would be like, this is idiotic and garbage. Tell him to throw the child away and go do some work and give me a good show. Like if you told me that's what it was going to be, I would be upset. And it's like, wow, this is everything I ever wanted. Yep, all I want is this guy unexpressive in his helmet shooting bad guys while also holding baby Yoda. That's like done. Done. Excellent.
There you go. I don't know if there's anything more that can be said about Star Wars or the Mandalorian because you just wrapped it up right there.
That was the final word. Nobody can say anything else. It's done.
Absolutely. Now, we talked Marvel and we talked Star Wars, but now we're going to jump into like a whole new thing that's not owned by Disney, and that's video games.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. So I've been gaming for a long time. My dad let me play Grand Theft Auto entirely too young, and he only made me stop because my prime directive while playing the game was running over people in the street and yelling about it. So, I'm fine mentally. I'm good. Don't worry about me. But so I got Grand Theft Auto taken away from me. But I had my PS2, and I remember being a kid and going to Blockbuster and renting games, and then like figuring out, okay, this was one that I wanted, and playing them like super out of order and like only knowing what I could play in that week, which I wasn't very good at video games and I still don't think I am now. So I didn't really get far in a week. So there are games that I know very little about but hold a lot of nostalgia for me. So I guess I had my basis in like Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, Little Big Planet, like these games. And then as I got older, I got really into it. I have an older brother, and I got into watching him play certain games when he wanted to be nice enough to let me into his room to watch him play. I got really into Assassin's Creed, Red Dead Redemption, The Last of Us. I found on my own, and that was good. The Infamous series, like those kinds of games, I just thought were brilliant. They really, honestly, they kind of shaped. It's funny to say that those characters and things like shape you as a person and that you identify with them, because it's like, how much does a cowboy trying to kill his old gang mates have to do with me? But it really, they really do shape my experience, I guess, as I was growing up and I guess becoming an adult, watching those games and playing them myself.
I want to just shout out like one of the games that you mentioned at the start because I don't find many people that like willingly bring it up, which is Sly Cooper, because I love how they designed that game. And I just saw that they announced that they're doing another Sly Cooper game.
Oh, really? I didn't know. I thought that they were brilliant. I thought Sly Cooper was like the coolest when I was a kid. Like raccoon that was like all smooth and had like the sickle thing, and his team was so funny. Bentley, the turtle, in the wheelchair. Like I just thought that that whole game was awesome, and I bought them and downloaded them on the PS4 not that long ago, and I was so disappointed by how boring they were. Like now, nostalgia really made me waste I don't know how many of my hard-earned dollars on this stupid game because I remember I had such fond memories of I can't remember which one it was, but it was like part of it took place in Venice, and you had like this lion that was like opera singing for some reason, and you had to like make the water run clean, and Murray the hippo was like on some weird walkabout, and you were trying to find what he was doing in Venice by himself. I went back and I played it and I was like, oh my God, this is so slow and clunky. Like, why did I like this so much when I was a kid? Yeah.
That is, I mean, I've been around since like the Nintendo days, and there are definitely games where I load them up now, whether it's like through the Nintendo Switch Online or I see some of them and I'm like, you know, I'd love to play them. And then I play them and I'm like, yeah,
Mistake.
that's complete trash. Like, how did I play this as a kid?
I felt that way about Watch Dogs. I think it came out like 5 or 6 years ago or something, and I remember that it came out. And I've always been really into reading reviews for some reasons. For some reason, like I'll for no reason go on TripAdvisor and read reviews of places I've already been to just to see what other people have to say about it. So I remember playing Watch Dogs and thinking like, oh my God, this is so cool. You can hack people. And like I've always been a terrible driver in video games. Like I never had any interest in driving until I started driving and like I had to focus on it. And now I love it. I'm obsessed with like racing games and NASCAR and stuff. But I remember that the mechanics to drive in Watch Dogs were just so stupid and so easy. Like the cars that look like Corvettes look like they go 300 miles an hour, and you can drift and do all this crazy stuff in it. So that was like part of the big reason why I like Watch Dogs so much. But I just thought like the whole idea behind it, and hacking people, and you had like this guy who'd lost his niece and was so cool, and I thought it was awesome, and I had read reviews about it, and people just trashed Watch Dogs, and I was like, how dare you, this is like a work of art. And I bought it for $5 at GameStop like 6 months ago, and I popped it in the other day, and I was like, you know what, like let's do this, let's just replay Watch Dogs. And I hate it. All I do is drive around and I wreak havoc and I crash, and I just basically I just want to watch the world burn because I hate the main character and the whole plot is just stupid. I don't want to hack anybody. I hate it now. It's I'm like, wow, all right. So when you were 13, this was cool. That's great. Awesome. Glad to know you've never had taste.
What are some of your go-to games now, the ones that you like will fire up and actually be into and play, and you're like, yeah, this is my game now?
I play Red Dead 2 incessantly. I would play a lot more Red Dead 1 if I had like a PS3 that was like always here and reliable, but sometimes I just like I get home from class and I have a save that um starts in chapter 2, because I don't know if you've ever played Red Dead 2, but you have like this whole chapter that's like in the snow and the mountains, and like the weather sucks and everybody's really slow because everybody's like trudging through I don't know how many feet of snow. So I have a save file that's after that, but before Arthur ever gets near the guy who gives him tuberculosis. Like I have that perfect save, and I never do anything with that save. I've beat the game 3 times already. And sometimes I get home from class and I'm like, all right, sometimes I don't even shoot anything or do any missions. I just like ride a horse for like a couple hours and I just explore and I hunt and I collect like birds and stuff. It's like so stupid, but that's like my go-to game. I love cowboys, and the game is just so beautiful, and the mechanics are awesome because Rockstar is brilliant at what they do. So that's definitely my go-to game. Either that or like I don't know, NASCAR Heat 3. That's like all I play. I feel like that has such redneck energy. Like I only play the cowboy game or NASCAR. Other than that, like but it's the truth. It is definitely the truth. That's what I do.
Red Dead is one of those games where the first one came out, and we had our kids were young at the time, and I remember taking them over to somebody's house. They were having like a housewarming party, and people were playing Red Dead, and they're shooting people up, and I'm like, yeah, my kids can't really be around that right now. So we got like pushed into like another room where there wasn't anything happening
Teletubbies
at
is on
all.
in here. You guys can hang out over there.
Yeah, pretty much. We're like, okay, we'll just stick to our area. So I never got to play it, but Red Dead now is on PC, which is where I spend most of my time, and I really want to play it just because I'm so bad at action adventure games that I want to get on and just stream it on Twitch and be like, look at me be an idiot and not be able to hit anything with my gun.
It's a really people friendly game though. Like it kind of just aims for you. So if you have like reflexes slightly quicker than like an old person, you'd be good at it. And it's such a brilliant story, and I can't even like I love that game so much. It is like my favorite thing that's ever happened in my life. But it really is worth playing. Like it's not that difficult, and both of them are really really cool. But the second one, I guess, customization and mechanics wise is brilliant. Like they just give you a 36-year-old man and they're like, all right, take care of the cowboy, be good to him. And I'm like, oh my God, all right.
I know there's one person I was watching streaming, and they were like, I'm just going to let his beard just go and
Oh
see
my
how long
God,
we can get
no,
it.
that is a heathen. I refuse to talk to anybody who left him like that. My Arthur was well fed, clean shaven, his hair was brushed. Like I refused. I let his hair get long once because I thought he looked kind of like Chris Hemsworth, and I was like, all right, cool, that's it. But no, he was honestly, I took care of that cowboy better than I take care of myself. So
Arthur's like the modern day Tamagotchi.
yeah, my dog is named Arthur after him. So
Oh my goodness. So but you got the cowboy games and the NASCAR driving game.
yeah, that's those are my go-to. I like to drive and I like the Wild West. So that's what I'll go home and play on any given day.
That is one of not NASCAR, but the Western, the cowboy style game. Like that's one of the things that when I was growing up, like there was either always pirate stuff or cowboy stuff happening on TV, and I'm glad to see it like kind of coming back because I feel like you just need it sometimes. You need like that just
Yes.
grittiness of that world.
And it makes me kind of sad because it died out so spectacularly. Like I think back in the day, I'm not going to name a year because I'm going to say the wrong year and be uneducated. But back in the day, like I think the Western movie was what the superhero or sci-fi movie is today, where they were. I
Yep.
mean, you couldn't throw a rock in a movie theater without hitting, at least 18 Western movie posters. And so both my grandfathers, I'm closest to the one that's lives here. I basically live with him. Um, he's super into Western movies. So I remember being a kid and, laying next to him on the couch and stuff like that and watching nothing but constant Western movies. And basically his family had a farm in Cuba. So he grew up riding horses and stuff like that. So he had a friend who had a farm here. And when I was a kid, I would get taken to the farm around the horses and stuff. And my grandmother's a very theatrical lady who I love to death. So instead of being like, we're going out, could I just dress you in regular clothing? No, I would be dressed in cowboy boots, flare-legged jeans, like a fringed jacket, a small cowboy hat. Like she would put me in costume just to visit this guy's home. And so I thought I hated it back when I was a kid, but I think that that stuck in my head so hard. So I legitimately, like, I wear cowboy boots everywhere. I own like 10 different cowboy hats. It's legitimately my aesthetic. So I saw it coming back when Red Dead 2 came out, and I was so excited about it. And then I looked on the internet and everybody was like, "Oh my god, what a meme to wear cowboy boots at the mall." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I've been doing that." Like, I thought that you guys were all on board with me. So I think that the genre's effectively dead. The aesthetic nobody really cares about. I would wear a holster in the street, like an empty one, just to put my phone in it if I could, because it's, my spurs and all that. Nobody's in it. Nobody's in it with me, but but for like the fleeting few months that Red Dead was all anybody talked about, it felt really nice to be accepted.
uh, I like. I'm just trying to think. Like, I remember with Western movies, my roommate in college, that was what like his thing was. Hey, have you seen The Outlaw Josie Wales or The Good, the Bad, the Ugly? Have you seen this one? This one is like, man, you're throwing some way back stuff in our DVD player here, but good stuff for what it was back in that time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be into a very specific type of character because they're all kind of written very similarly. But yeah, I mean, if it's what you're into, there's so much of it out there.
So you went from being dressed up as, cowboy, cowgirl,
Yeah.
and now you do that, but with a ton of different characters, and you're into cosplay. How did you? I mean, was that the first gateway into cosplay, or was there a different gateway into cosplay for you?
I'm not sure that there was ever really a gateway. I remember that from being a kid, I was always like really into characters, and I think that that's what gets me into cosplay. Like, I don't. There are some characters that I've bought or made cosplays for because I like the design, not so much because I'm into the character. But for the most part, every cosplay that I've done is because I admire or identify with or really like the character that I'm dressed as. So I remember that there was, from when I was a kid, there was always this tendency to want to be dressed up, and portray these different characters. And I was a ham when I was a kid. I used to love, I would like cut up tickets and distribute tickets to my premiere shows in my room. And I would make everybody stop making dinner and working, and they would come and watch me perform. So I think that there's always been that tendency to want to be kind of out there. And I think in middle school I went to a convention and I was supposed to meet up with my friends, and I went with my mom took me, and I was calling my friends at the convention, and conveniently everybody's phone was turned off. So I never went back to another convention after that because my mom and I walked around for an hour, and I was like, I hate this. Like, I was miserable. I wanted to go home. And so I think that was like in 2011 or 12, and I never went back to another convention. And then in 2014, Winter Soldier came out, and I wanted to cosplay him for Halloween. And my grandmother helped me sew something up, and bless her heart, it came out all right for what it was. And then in 2016, Overwatch came out, and I had a friend who had been like tracking its release. Like, he had seen the beta testing on PC and stuff. And I remember that he one day came up to me. He's like, "There's a character that you're gonna love because he's everything that you like." And I said, "Please explain." They're like, "He's a long-haired cowboy with a metal arm." And I was like, what are you talking about right now? And he showed me McCree, and I was like, absolutely. And so I decided I have to cosplay this guy. So naturally, I went on the internet to find a costume, and this was already like in June or July of when that of 2016, and there was nobody making anything. Like, now you can't go to a convention without seeing 18 McCree revolvers and all these things that they sell. And the game is like effectively dead. Like, the fandom, there's very few Overwatch cosplayers, but like, I basically was like one of the first people on the scene in South Florida, like cosplaying Overwatch, because I mean, I wasn't very good at it at the time, but I was one of the first ones. And so I remember that I wanted to cosplay him, and I told my dad, and my dad, sat there and he looked at the character with me. He's like, "Dude, you don't like how are you going to do this? Like, what do you mean? They don't sell this? Like, I'm like, "No, they don't sell it, so I'm gonna have to, like, make it, I guess." He's like, "How are you gonna make it?" I'm like, "I have no idea." So he sits there and he starts looking up how to make armor, and we come across this community called the cosplay community, and they use EVA foam and spray paint, and somehow with enough cutting and pasting you end up with armor. And I was like, I was fascinated. And that was, I guess, I think McCree was basically my gateway drug because I built my McCree costume, and it was admittedly like not good, but for my first thing, like I don't like to look at progress and be like, "Oh, you sucked before." Like, no, I just didn't have experience, you know? I think that saying you
Hmm.
sucked before at something is a really terrible way of encouraging others to follow your footsteps because you're just discouraging them. You're telling them effectively, like, if this is where you're at, it's bad. Quit now, you know? Um,
Right.
so I built my McCree costume and I went to a convention in Tampa. I don't really know why I picked Tampa. I'm like 5 hours away from Tampa, but I went over there and the whole day everybody was like, "Oh my god, what time is it?" and asking me for pictures. And I'm a very introverted person for the most part. So the fact that I had people wanting to interact with me and calling out, McCree at me the whole time, I was like, "What is this?" And I was hooked. I was definitely hooked. That experience wearing McCree is what really made me wanna continue with this.
I have to ask, as so you said that you're like a very introverted person. Has cosplay helped you break out of that, or are you still introverted, but you do what you can when you're in cosplay? Like
No,
I'm
absolutely. I think for the most part as a person, I don't think that I'm like a hermit or anything or like, like I don't like people. Like, no, I'll talk to people and I communicate effectively and I like conversation and stuff. Um but for the most part I don't really like a lot of attention. Like, I wear things that I think are a little bit outlandish, and I look certain outlandish ways at times, but it's just because like that's what I'm inspired by and that's what I want to look like, but not because I want to attract attention to myself. It honestly makes me nervous. And so being in cosplay, I've had to overcome that and know, like, if I'm wearing a certain character, people are going to want pictures. And I honestly really love it when I'm in that world. Like, I love wearing these costumes and having people come up and ask me about the character and want pictures with me because they think I'm embodying the character really well. Like, that is honestly really fun for me. So it's kind of a thing where I've had to come out of my shell to do what I do because there's like no way to be a guest anywhere or effectively have a good day at a convention if you're not going to interact with other people and be out there, I guess. um but for the most part, as at base level, I'm still introverted. Like, I've done 4-day conventions, and by the end of those 4 days, I want to just sit in my room and be left alone. Like, part of it is it's an interesting thing because I finish and I go from a place where everybody knows my name to now I'm walking down the street and it's like, no, 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 get out of my way, kid. Like, I don't know who you are. I mean, shoot, kid, you bother me. So it's like, hey, I cosplay stuff. Like, do you know that? Like, I'm kind of interesting. Um, so it's kind of a shock to come out of events like that and realize, like, yeah, no, I'm still irrelevant, but it's also kind of so refreshing after having to sit there for 4 days, like if I've had a booth or whatever. And every time somebody comes up, immediately smile and show interest and talk to them, and I'm interested in talking to people, but it's exhausting. It's like, all right, I'm good. I'm just going to lay down and be left alone now. I'm peopled out. I just want my Netflix and my chalky milk, and I want to be left alone.
I can totally respect that. I mean, there are times where I get press passes to conventions to go cover, and like I can do this all day. I can talk to people. I'm on the internet. You're not near me.
Yeah.
Like like you're not seeing like my awkwardness and stuff. And it's like, but then when I get to the convention, it's like I freeze. I can't introduce myself. I get very shy. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm a bother to the person. They're doing their own thing, and it's like it's the one thing I've been trying to overcome every time I go to conventions. Like, I set a goal of let me talk to 5 people, let me
Yeah.
talk to 10 people.
I get that, and I also struggle because like I said, I used to be a ham when I was a kid, and then like I think just going to school kind of traumatized me because it's like, you know, you grow up being celebrated by your family. I'm like the baby of my family, so it's like, you know, everything I did was adorable, and I was like so talented. And I remember that I used to in elementary school, I would get like these dried coconuts off the floor, and I would put toothpicks in their bodies, like for arms and legs, and I would draw faces on them. And there's still like rotting coconuts that are dried now, like put away in boxes in my house because everybody was like, "Oh my God, she's so cute and so creative. We must save all of this." So I went from being celebrated and adored to being in school in America where it's like if you stand out, you're an idiot, sit down and shut up. So I felt like, oh my God. So I just like stifled all this creativity for so long. And so it's like cosplay gives me this opportunity to like just be out there and you know, be exciting and stuff. But I also feel I walk a dangerous line because like where certain characters kind of make me want to shut up and be left alone. And I think it's partially because the cosplays are so restricting. Like in Winter Soldier, I've had people actually tell me like, "Oh my God, you're such a brilliant Winter Soldier. Like you're in character." And it's not that I'm really consciously trying, but it's that I'm uncomfortable and really hot and I have a muzzle on effectively. So I feel silenced, and that means that I don't want to interact with you. What I want is to try and retain whatever coolness I can in my body and not speak to you because it's hot in this mask. Um, so there are some characters like that, but for the most part, I don't wear masks or helmets or anything. And so I think that it's easy to get overstimulated in these things. And there's a lot of people that have the idea that I'm a very obnoxious person. And I think I don't even like to listen to my own podcasts that I'm in or anything because I think that I come across just like this obnoxious, like, oh yeah, I'm snarky. Like that's really not how I think at all. But it's this thing that in that element, I'm really just like I'm setting aside everything that I've felt and the way I've behaved for almost 20 years now. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, this is my alter ego. I'm out here. Let's go. And it really sucks because I say things and I'm like, oh my God, why would I say that? Like, that's not cool. It's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation.
Oh my goodness. Now you've done a lot of different costumes, a lot of different characters. Do you have like favorites where you're like, dang, like I make a really great insert character here?
Oh my God. Yeah, so I like being Winter Soldier a lot. It's one of the most uncomfortable ones that I have, but I love the character. Like I said, it's my favorite movie, so I have a lot of love for it. That one for sure. I think I'm a pretty good Eric Draven from The Crow. That's my all-time favorite movie. And so I know the movie, like every line of the movie by heart. Like if I had to sit out here and like somebody put a gun to my head and was like, write The Crow right now, and if you get more than 10 lines wrong, we pull the trigger, like I guarantee you I would survive. That's how well I know that movie. So I think I embody that character really well. I just haven't worn it to a convention because my face melts. Definitely those two. Other than that, I don't know. I have a hard time with characters like Black Cat, for instance, because I like wearing it and I like the look, but I don't have like that sultry, flirtatious attitude at all. Like I'm way more comfortable being a cowboy. So Ash and John Marston and that kind of thing, like that is absolutely that's my thing right there. Those are the characters that that I guess I kind of thrive at.
What are your future projects when it comes to like for this year? Like do you have you've I assume as all cosplayers tend to have like they've got like the slate of I'd love to do X, Y, and Z character this year.
Yes. So I actually, like 2 days ago, I actually sat there at like 2 a.m. and made a list on my phone of priorities because I tend to do this thing where I have like 18 things that I'm working on. And then, I'm like, oh, I really need to work on these things and I need to devote my money to working on these things. And then like somebody says, we're having a sale. And I'm like, oh my God, all right, cool. I guess I'm gonna do somebody else now. And I have all these unfinished projects. So yeah, I'm gonna most closely, I guess I'm going to be improving my Deadpool. The first time that I did it, I only had the suit and I wore like a long blonde wig, and I tried to do like his cancer skin like in the comics, and
Hmm.
everybody thought I had kisses on my face. So I actually ordered a mask that I got an email now that it just got delivered. Um, so I bought like this mask. So I'm gonna be improving Deadpool. That's probably the first thing. Um, After that, I had developed last year a NASCAR inspired Lightning McQueen concept, like the Pixar movie. That the Cars is my favorite movie, and it's what got me into cars and NASCAR when I was younger. So I was like, you know what? I'll just like come up like if Lightning McQueen had a driver, like what would they look like? So I put I don't know how many hours into this helmet, and I basically like gave up on the rest. So I'm getting back on that. And then I'm gonna be doing Zero Suit Samus from Smash Bros. And Metroid Prime, all of that.
Hmm.
And then the biggest project that I'm working on this year though is my Mandalorian. I've had the helmet for I don't know how long. I primed it. It's ready to go. I've put in a lot of work into it, but I have no motivation to build anything else because my Boba Fett was such a nightmare to build that my mind is like, we've done this once. You're not building another one of these guys. And I'm like, we spent a lot of money and time on this helmet. Hell yes, we are. So I think my goal is to finish the helmet first because I think that once the helmet is done, I'll be like, all right, now let's build the rest to match. So that's the biggest project. The other three, I mean, there's still projects that are going to take me time, but the biggest build that I have planned right now is Mando.
I'm looking forward to that because I saw your pictures from Holiday Matsuri with the
Yeah,
helmet, and I'm like,
like
okay,
Christmas
yeah, you
Baby
know what?
Yoda.
I'm ready for that. Like, let's go.
Yeah, I bought a different helmet. That was actually my Boba Fett helmet that I butchered and turned into that. I like took the rangefinder off and I cut it up and I added additional. I feel so guilty about it because like Boba's my first Mando love, and it's like now I've destroyed his bucket and like I can never turn it back into him now. And I did all that with it and I saw the pictures from Holiday Matsuri and it was so much fun. That was like the costume that I've done that got the most attention. I was getting swarmed all day, not because of any of the work I put into my helmet, but because I had a stroller with Baby Yoda in it. Um, but yeah, I'm excited because I love being a Mando. Boba Fett was one of my favorite things to wear aside from the discomfort of it. It's a lot of fun. So that's definitely honestly the thing I'm most focused on this year.
Very cool. And for people that are listening, I like whenever I came across your Instagram page, it's something I always love to do is just see the number of different fandoms people are into, the different costumes that you do, and it's just you have such a wide range of characters, and it's just so much fun to see you transform from one character to another.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I only got into doing wigs and makeup like last year. So for the most part, it was like, all right, so I'm gonna do Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman with like short hair, and I'm gonna do McCree, but like I already was like McCree's skin color and I had his haircut. So, and like McCree's haircut was also Bucky's haircut. So like I just cosplayed a lot of people that I could sort of like already, kind of like fit into. And it's like now I'm doing all these different things and it's honestly I think that's like my favorite part so far because I think until I did Ash, I had never really like transformed myself into anybody. Like I had never done a whole wig and like makeup look. Um, so now it's kind of interesting because I have like just like a bag of a ton of different colors of hair in my trundle, my day bed in my room. And I'm like, all right, who are we going to be today? And it's like really interesting to not only like, all right, I was, I don't know, Hella 2 days ago, and now I'm going to be Power Girl. So after I stuff myself into this white leather bodysuit, I'm going to put on a blonde wig and look like somebody else. Like it's honestly just so interesting to me to see the effect that like what do I look like with thinner eyebrows? It's just it's a lot of fun. I think it's honestly become like my favorite part. Like I love building stuff, but for me it's like all right, set all the costume pieces aside. Let's see what I can do with my face and just become somebody different.
That is, it's just incredible to look at. And I've got your Instagram page up here. There's one recent one that you took a picture of, which is Nightwing. Which, when by the time the this episode releases, you're going to have to probably scroll to look for it. But the Nightwing is just there. There's just something about it that there's like this energy that radiates from you of just like I am Nightwing and I will mess you up.
Thank you. And it's funny because all of those pictures, I have this ring light now, and I set up the ring light on a cardboard box, and I put my phone there, and I have like the same pose in all of the pictures because I have a remote in my hand that sets the camera off. So the whole time I'm taking those pictures, I'm like rapid fire trying to pose before one of my dogs knocks the ring light over. So it's really difficult to capture this intense energy. So I'll like take 200 pictures, and then afterwards I'll have to weed through them, and I'm like, oh, there's a dog over here, like, he's like laying down or rolling around on the floor behind me, and oh, the tripod was literally like falling over in this exact moment. So to get pictures like that, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'm really in the mindset to have gotten that kind of look out of it because I actually really do like that picture.
It is a great picture, and wow, like the trials and tribulations of trying to get photos
And I
is
mean, my
definitely something.
dad is my photographer. Like my Gwenpool pictures, and like I've done photo shoots and stuff. And he's the guy that I can tell my dad, hey, I want to take pictures this weekend, and he'll be like, all right, do you have a location in mind? And we'll go out. The problem is that usually like we do brunch, and so then by the time that brunch has settled, we want to go out and take pictures at 5. We have a half hour of daylight, make it work. So I
Mhm.
have a photographer at my disposal who's willing to take pictures, and I get so lazy about it that I'm like, all right, ring light and makeup at the house, and then I'm like suited up for like 3 hours, and my mom gets home from work, she's like, what are you doing, dude? I'm like, oh, don't mind me, this is my second job, just sitting around my house in a cosplay. All dressed up and nowhere to go, no crime to fight.
Well, that it is awesome that your dad is there supporting you and taking pictures and just being involved. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you asked him, he would definitely say that he wishes I would stop because I think that um, I've been honest with him about the amounts of money that I've spent on this, and I have like a Ko-fi thing for donations, but very little of the money that I spend on cosplay is ever from donations. Like, it's all like I made money here and I saved it, or like I was saving up to buy a Captain America suit, but then I bought 7 other things instead. Like, he asked me how much that helmet that I'm doing for Mando cost, and he was like, "Why would you spend this much on a bucket?" And I'm like, "Look, dude, you're never gonna understand. Like, this is what I'm doing." Um, so it's definitely if you asked him, he would definitely wish that I would do something else with my time. But he's supportive enough that he'll take my pictures, and he thinks that it's been good for my development as a person. So he just deals with it because at this point, like, he knows it's not going to stop. He's like, you got a package here, it's another one, just whatever, just do what you're going to do, and if you want pictures, let me know.
Well, there you go. Now, for people that have been listening and they've made it here to the end and they want to find you online to check out your pictures or whatever else you'd love to like throw out there, where can people find you on the internets?
So my Facebook is Snarky Jay Cosplay. If you still use Facebook, or if my grandpa's listening to this, my Instagram is Snarky Jay Cosplay as well. Snarky like the adjective, Jay as in blue jay, Jay cosplay. I have a Twitter too, but it's just Snarky the letter J Cosplay because somebody stole my username. I don't know what's up with that, but anyway, so yeah, you can find me on those 3 spots. I'm most active on my Instagram though. That's where you can find my work in progress shots and my life updates on my story.
Awesome. So I'll have the links to those on the show notes and on our Facebook page, which, as a not grandpa yet, I still use, and I'll have it on the website as well. And I just want to say thank you, Jay, for taking the time out of your schedule and coming on and talking to me and making me hurt my mouth from smiling and laughing so much, because it was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad that I was able to entertain you at least, and I really appreciate you having me. I love doing podcasts and chatting with people. So It's been great, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.